Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Cuyahoga County Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 19th, the day after the day of poor Mr. Chubb. We are so sad. Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Welcome, Mr. Miller, as always. We have public comment.
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
In your packets, we have the meeting minutes of July 25th. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion in a second.
Make a motion.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I'm going to go out of order a little bit here and bring up our friends under discussion, the juvenile court.
Good afternoon. Chairman Gallagher, Vice Chair Conwell, Council and committee members Kelly, Miller, and Tuma. My name is Mark Stanton. I'm a magistrate at Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court. I work directly under the supervision of the Administrative Judge Thomas F. O'Malley. Thankfully for me, and fortunately for all of you, I am accompanied by the Court Administrator, Tim McDivitt, and Deputy Administrator Bridget Gibbons, two individuals who are far more informed and far more eloquent than I am. Any direct questions that you would have on the topic, I would ask that you defer to them. I did, however, want to extend our profound gratitude for the opportunity to speak to this esteemed committee. Judge Thomas F. O'Malley cannot be here today. He did want to extend his ardent regret for his inability to appear and speak with you personally. That unfortunate aspect lies at my feet. I provided him with alternative and successive dates of 9/5 and 9/12/2023 to appear here. Accordingly, he revised his court dockets for those days, which revises his court dockets for the weeks. So that created a problem. Today, he is in New York attending to a family obligation, an obligation which cannot be fulfilled or rescheduled by a surrogate. But all of us, including at the direction of Administrative Judge Thomas O'Malley, want to indicate to you that we've worked extensively, especially Mr. McDivitt and Ms. Gibbons, along with a multitude of other individuals, have worked extensive hours, days, weeks, months, and yes, years, trying to resolve an acute issue which confronts us daily at juvenile court. Quite simply, and at the risk of appearing trite, the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Center is an authentic tinderbox. And it's not a tinderbox just today on September 19th, 2023. This is an unfortunate situation which has prevailed since the late 2000 teens. Most notably in the last 3 years. There's just an insufficient number of detention officers to maintain the safety in that facility and to provide the services that these children need. No manageable and effective plan to alleviate this situation can be implemented without a sufficient number of detention officers, a number which is woefully inadequate and creates a highly dangerous situation at this time. The number in the detention center today is 161. Compare that to last year, 2022, when the average number of individuals in the detention center was 139. Unfortunately, for the last 10 weeks, we've averaged between 150 and 165 youth. Proportionally, we don't have near the number of requisite detention officers to handle these kids in a proper manner. And accordingly, because of that situation, overtime is mandated on a regular basis for detention officers who are now burned out, overworked, and not capable of providing the proper services. And it's been overtime's been mandated at a pace and at a rate that the cost of it has become astronomical. I would indicate to you that we project that the cost of this will be north of $5 million before 2023 concludes. That cost, that money to pay that overtime is diverted from other programs, from other divisions within the juvenile court, which are absolutely essential for the safety and welfare of those children, but more importantly, or equally as important, to provide them with the mental health services, the substance abuse services, the educational services, and the counseling services that they so desperately need. Those detention officers are dedicated. They want to be there. They want to be with those kids. They're making less money there than they could be downtown at the jail. They want to be there. We can't compete with the compensation that's being paid downtown, but we need more officers. Once again, this process is not sustainable. We can't divert money continuously. We require the money to hire additional detention officers, and we require it immediately. Hiring has been pursued, and we're hopeful that we can revise the postings for those positions to accurately reflect an increase in compensation to attract the requisite number of detention officers. I will now defer to Administrator McDevitt and Deputy Administrator Gibbons, who will provide for you the foundational specifics of our request. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim McDevitt, Court Administrator.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't this the detention officers, aren't they part of a union?
They are not.
Okay, thank
Good afternoon, and I will echo Mr. Stanton's words of gratitude about being able to come here today and talk to you about our detention center and the detailed reasons for our request. Let me back up just a little bit and talk about our population. As Mr. Stanton indicated, we're at 161 this morning. In 2010, our average daily population was 110. For the past month, as Mr. Stanton indicated, we've been north of 160. At the end of August, we had several days where we had 167 youth in the detention center. We were 3 beds away from having no beds for boys. It forced us to make plans to sleep boys in the gym. Gratefully, we didn't have to do that, but those are the circumstances we find ourselves in. As Mr. Stanton indicated, our overtime costs will exceed $5 million. This is primarily due to the funding that was determined for the last biennium based on the 12th pay of 2021. On the 12th pay of 2021, we had 88 detention officers. That was the absolute height of our staffing crisis. And I can tell you the summer of 2021 was a difficult time for our staff. They worked an incredible number of overtime hours to keep our building safe. The snapshot for the biennium that's coming up is the 12th pay of 2023. On that date, we had 110 detention officers. 110 detention officers is still inadequate for 2 reasons. First, the population, most obvious. Going from 110 to 160 is the equivalent of adding almost 2 entire housing units. The second reason is the severity of the mental and physical health needs of the residents we have right now. It's unprecedented. And let me give you just 3 examples. We have a 16-year-old youth in our detention center who bites chunks out of his arms to the point where in January he bit himself so severely that the blood was pulsing out of his arm and spraying around the unit. Our staff on duty that night thought he was not going to make it. Gratefully, he did, but since then, he's either bitten himself again or reopened the wounds so many times that we've transported him to the emergency room over 25 times. We had a 15-year-old in our care for 9 months who was missing part of his skull from a gunshot wound. That youth also required 24-hour supervision, as did the youth who's biting chunks out of his arms. He needs a staff with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to prevent him from hurting himself. We currently have a 16-year-old youth who was shot through the eye, the bullet still lodged in his head, and that youth is so angry and sometimes so out of control that staff have to restrain him. And when they restrain him, he bashes his head against the ground, and our staff place their hands between his head and the ground to prevent the bullet from moving and him harming himself even more. We have 2 medical cells in the detention center. And you know, I meant to say this at the beginning. I invite all of you to come to the detention center at any time and meet our staff and see our facility. But we have 2 medical cells, and that is typically enough. But right now, we have been forced to turn 2 pods into units that care for medically fragile youth. That's 20 kids. They come to us with gunshot wounds or with injuries sustained in car crashes. All 20 of those youth require follow-up appointments in the community with specialists. And each time a youth leaves our building, 2 detention officers have to go with them. In August, we had 2 days in which we had 10 youth who had to go to appointments. That's 20 staff leaving the building, leaving our building short. One additional population I'll mention is we have 14 youth in the custody of Children and Family Services in our care right now. Now, 5 of those kids deserve to be with us. They have very serious charges. But 9 of the youth, if they had a home to go to, we would release on electronic monitoring, on home detention. We would look to release, but they're in our care. So again, 110 staff leave us understaffed, and that has consequences. As Mr. Stanton mentioned, it requires us to mandate overtime in excess of 30 times a week. And what that means is if you're a detention officer and you're reaching the end of your shift, your 8 hours, you're visited by a manager who says, "I'm sorry, but because we're understaffed, you have to stay for another 8." That's only not safe because you're not as effective in hour 14, 15, and 16. It's not fair to our staff. Our staff have families. They have lives outside of the building. And that only happens so often before they start looking for other jobs. And we've been told that in exit interviews. Another consequence of understaffing is training. We have excellent training, but we often have to cancel it because we need to have those staff monitor the units. And when that happens, it harms our ability to have well-trained staff. Because we know when we have well-trained staff, we have effective staff. When we have effective staff, we will have long-term staff. And we've also heard that in exit interviews. The next, another consequence of understaffing is absenteeism. When somebody calls off, word gets out, and that has a cascading effect. Nobody wants to work an undermanned unit on a difficult housing unit. Another consequence to understaffing is it makes it very difficult to pass the Ohio Administrative Code audit. I'm happy to report that in 2023, we passed the Ohio Administrative Code audit, but we failed the 3 previous audits, and it was because we were confining residents because of low staffing. The court is obligated to operate the detention center in accord with the OAC, but it's almost impossible to do that with our current level of staffing. Confining youth not only causes us to fail audits, but it's also harmful to the youth. It's harmful to their mental health. It increases behavioral volatility. And when kids exit periods of confinement, they come out angry and aggressive, and that results in staff injuries and youth injuries. Understaffing also causes us to reduce activities, and activities in a juvenile detention center are as important as staffing. We have to take activity staff and reassign them to watch housing units, and then the only activity becomes watching TV and playing cards. And when those are the activities, we have problems. We have kids who get in fights, and there results in youth and staff injuries. Let me here emphasize the difference between juveniles and adults. For adults, the OAC indicates that a jail administrator must sign off on disciplinary isolation that exceeds 120 hours, and the maximum is 60 days. In contrast, for juveniles, the OAC prohibits the use of room confinement for punishment and only allows us to confine for the temporary response to behavior that threatens immediate harm to a child or others. Additionally, confinement that exceeds 4 hours must be signed off by the juvenile detention director. 120 hours versus 4 hours. Children and adults are different. We cannot isolate children. We don't want to isolate children. That's dangerous to staff. And we must provide activities. To do that, we need staff. I realize as I'm saying this, I might be painting a dire picture, but I have to tell you that I am immensely proud of our staff and the remarkable job they are doing under difficult circumstances. In the last year, we've increased programming, we've increased visitation with families, and we are providing more mental health intervention than ever before. Our staff, it's the nature of the job where they only get attention when something bad happens. But I have to tell you, these are some of the most caring, compassionate, dedicated people you will ever meet in your life. They care about our community, and they care about the kids entrusted to their care. But we are, as Mr. Stanton mentioned, we are burning them out, and they need help. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Mr. Stanton, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair to Mr. McDevitt, have you considered maybe part-time retirees, bringing them back, asking them, those that have worked in that profession before?
Councilwoman, we have considered everything, and we will consider everything. You know, it is a very difficult time to hire in corrections, as I think everybody knows. In the last year, our HR department has done 167 interviews for detention officers. And if we are allowed to hire more, as we're asking today, we are dedicated to getting that done and filling those positions as quickly as possible.
And when you talk about hiring more, does that mean that you will also want to increase in what they make?
That is the plan. Our plan is to increase their hourly rate to match what the jail guards are making, the correction officers.
Down at the jail, okay.
Correct.
And then my other question would be, so I was trying to listen to what you were saying, and I'm just trying to think, how are we moving those kids out so it's not so many kids in there? Is there any holdup with the court process moving the children out faster?
No, I do not think so. You know, it's an odd time right now. When you look at who we have in the detention center, we took a snapshot on September 5th. We had 42 kids who were charged with a homicide-related offense, and we had 80 kids who are charged with a felony 1 or 2. And most of those are aggravated robberies, often with a firearm. I don't think, and we comb through the detention population every single week, looking for kids that we can step down safely, place on electronic monitoring. But the youth in our care have serious offenses.
I know there's some discussion you've been having probably with Administrator Merriman and Jackie Fletcher in terms of the kids from DCFS that do not have any offenses but have multisystemic issues as well.
Yes.
And you guys have been helping us. Has there been any update in terms of that movement? I think you guys wanted an increase in, or a payment or something like that.
No, Councilwoman, I don't think we've asked for a payment, and we have been working with them on the RFP to try to solve this problem of youth in the Jane and the Hunter lobby. You know, I sympathize with that. I look at those kids, and they're emotionally disturbed. Oftentimes, they've suffered years of sometimes horrific abuse, and they act out, and the lobby's not the right place for them, but neither is our detention center, based on who we have there, especially when they have, and I'm not minimizing their behavior, but when they have low-level offenses and then we place them with kids who are charged with homicide-related offenses, we are doing them no favors at all.
Thank you.
On July 13th, I toured the juvenile court and detention area. I appreciate the tour you gave. You do an amazing job there for the amount of people that you have. I was very impressed. And you can't do your job without money, and you can't do your job without the proper amount of people. And I wish you luck on the hiring process to get some more COs.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. McDivitt, the people with gunshot wounds and victims of car crashes and self-biting disorders, these things, do they also have serious offenses that merit that they be in the juvenile detention center, or should they be in some kind of hospital or mental health facility?
Yes, Councilman, they all have serious charges. The youth I mentioned today all had very serious charges. We do send kids out to mental health hospitalizations, and sometimes they go there for a couple days, but when they're ready for release, they come back to us.
I have concern that if we raise the compensation so that it's the same as the corrections officers downtown, that then the correction officer pay downtown is going to get raised again and throw it again out of whack, and so my question is whether there is an administrative policy to coordinate the pay of the correction centers, the correction officers, employees at the jail downtown and the juvenile detention center, and if not, should there be such a policy?
So there has not been, Councilman. Our fear is, and it has happened since the corrections officer's new contract, we've had at least 2 detention officers leave to go there. If our fear is that if we do not match that, we will lose more and more, and it's already a very difficult job market.
And are the correction officers downtown under collective bargaining?
They are.
So it's a case of trying to coordinate compensation where one group is under collective bargaining and the other is not, which creates some complications. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that I have a question, and maybe I'll stumble into one before this is over, but I kind of just have to share my frustration over everything. This body doesn't have any direct oversight over the juvenile justice system. We're here to help with your budget, and I certainly support the need for whatever we can do, this body collectively decides to do to help with your funding for the officers that are needed. But the children there are really the same children we have in, as you mentioned, Jane Ed and Hunter building. So two different systems, but the children are the same. And I'm saying this about your system, but it's true of ours as well. What are we genuinely going to do to help these children? They are predominantly African American. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Predominantly African American. They are, and Jane Ed the Hunter, these are hurt people that hurt people. Let me put it that way. Hurt people that hurt people. They have, as you've already said, they've experienced so much in their life, and then they turn around and do the unthinkable, okay? But people are redeemable. I'm speaking now to the overall culture that does not agree with what I just said, but everyone is redeemable. And we have done, as an elected official, I'm not a professional. I can't go in and say what needs to be done. The professionals come to stand where you are. I'm no different than the people who elected me. My thinking is as they are. My level of expertise is right where theirs is. But I'm here to hold you all accountable as well, so that those that hold me accountable are part of the solution. And we need to pour into these children. It's not about rules, but it's about relationship. How do we pour into these redeemable children in such a way? We are guilty as a body of taking children from a home of abuse and neglect and then drop them in an office building. How are they expected to feel? I've seen it. I've seen the little blue plastic bag that they have while employees are doing their paid job of typing. And a child should be coming from a home of dysfunction and brought to a place where, and this is just as a layman, and I'm talking about Jane Ed and Hunter for the moment. Laymen, they should be coming into, again, a loving environment. Okay, if you've been taken from a place of abuse and neglect, where you bring them to, my layman common sense thinking, is somewhere where they see a loving mother, father figure. The environment looks like home, whether it's a nursing home, residential, wherever you create, but an environment where you're pouring into these kids, because we've seen it, and I've seen it. I've gone places where we see flashes of doing the right thing, but we have not made it habitually and consistent. Some of those children are coming from your facility, dropped off at the front door of Jane Ed to Hunter. Okay, so again, the same children, two different systems. We don't run yours. You know, we help you with your budget. I get calls every year before this budget time. What are they doing down at Jane Ed and Hunter? Well, I don't red light or green light what you do. I'm trying to make sure we get the part we're accountable for right as well. So again, what I'm saying is not a condemnation of you anymore. I've got to hold that same condemnation of ourselves for what we need to do. And I don't know what the exact answer is, but I think I'll know it when I see it. And I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen taking these children and recognizing that they are human beings and they've done maybe unthinkable things, but we never thought about what happened to them that put them where they are. And then we go into the rules, we go into strapping them down and all those things, and that hasn't worked. Okay? But what we haven't fully and consistently tried is to say they are redeemable, and how do we pour into them? Have we created the programming and funding necessary to alleviate the laundry list of consequences that are causing the understaffing? I've seen the children, I've seen people who have helped these children, and the most difficult children. Just a few months ago, less than a month ago, I met with a group that was interacting with some of the worst, most challenged children, and they were turning them back into little kids. You know, so if someone can do that in a flash moment, how do we make that consistent? If we can do it for ourselves, can your body, again, that we don't control or manage, find ways to do the same? And if helping provide funding here can start that path, then you would certainly have my full support. But that is just where I am right now after 12 years of every 2 years coming here. So I don't really have any more questions. You know, I'm looking for the answers now. Someone to come in. I don't want to give a suggestion. Why don't you do this, do that? I need someone to come to that podium and say, this is what it's going to take. and for our situation and for yours. And give us a big picture solution of how we help move these children through success. We know what they've done, but where do we go from there? How do we put them on the path of constructive opportunity once again? And I think I've said all I can say right now. If there's a response to any of that, the floor is yours.
Council President, I could not agree with you more. I'm here talking to you today about what's happening in our detention center. But we have a probation department, we have an early intervention and diversion center where we try to get services to kids as soon as possible after there's some event or some arrest or some charge. Our goal is always to keep kids in the least restrictive environment and to treat them in the home. As I mentioned before, running the detention center according to OAC is our obligation. We have to do it. We have to treat kids the right way. And when we don't get the funding that we need, as Mr. Stanton indicated, we gut those programs that keep kids out of the detention center. And I think that's the last thing we want to do. I just couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McDevitt, I think we find ourselves squarely in a position of Dr. Frankenstein. We, by doing a good thing, we thought, in raising the amount of pay for downtown, is affected your ability to maintain personnel in your facility. It's a needle that we have to thread, and I can assure you that after the meeting today, I'll be meeting with the administration to try and figure out how we put that thread through the needle. It's not lost on me, having been someone that worked in the courts for over 30 years. Maybe I'm a little bit tainted, but once you've seen the end result of what some of these quote-unquote children have done to other human beings, and in many times at the direction of older individuals within gangs, meaning that they're shield and the gang is shield, it's a problem that we've never really had before in this country. It was a problem that was restricted by borders outside of this country for the most part. Well, here it is on our doorstep, and we have to deal with it. So while we understand budgets, and we're going into a budget period, we're going to take this request seriously, and I would anticipate that now that we're on notice from hearing from you, that we'll have something of substance for you, hopefully by the end of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
Anything
thank you,
else?
members of council.
Anything else? And Mr. Stanton, it's very important to tell the truth in this committee. And if you started out by saying that, in all deference to Mr. McDevitt, but I don't think there is a more articulate orator in Cuyahoga County than you, my friend. Well, so you're the one that ruined the curve in high school for me, huh? Thank you very much. We will be getting back to you forthwith. Getting back under matters referred to the committee, Resolution 2023-0231.
Resolution number 2023-0231, awarding a total sum not to exceed $25,000 to the Downtown Cleveland Alliance for the Neighborhood Safety Specialist Program from the District 3 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gallagher, Vice Chair Conwell, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Deemer. I'm President and CEO of Downtown Cleveland, Inc., previously Downtown Cleveland Alliance. And I'm here to speak in support of our funding request for ARPA funds in support of our Neighborhood Safety Specialist program. I'd like to say a few words about Downtown Cleveland, Inc., some of the challenges that we're facing, how we're seeking to address them, and specifically how this grant would help us address some real needs in downtown, and of course answer any questions that any of you may have. Downtown Cleveland, Inc. is the only organization that is dedicated exclusively to building up the heart of the city and region, downtown Cleveland. We work from the sidewalk to the skyline and literally everywhere in between to improve the economy, the experience, and the environment of downtown Cleveland. We recognize our city's core is really the economic engine of the region. Prior to the pandemic, we had a decade of job growth with over a 15% increase in private sector jobs. We were the highest concentration of jobs in the state of Ohio, the largest residential downtown in the state, and our special improvement district represents over $3.75 billion worth of real estate. All that said, our region's economic engine faces very serious challenges. We've had a very serious set of challenges during the pandemic and coming out of it around the office market and what that means for office buildings in downtown and what the future of work looks like. That's had a cascading effect on having a lower downtown daytime population and a smaller customer base for small businesses during the day that we continue to work at. And we've had a big challenge over the course of the summer across the city with regard to public safety, and many of those challenges have been particularly acute in downtown Cleveland. We've responded with to the challenges in the office market and to safety challenges with really a comprehensive plan that we worked on with Mayor Bibb and County Executive Ronayne called Reimagining Downtown. We launched that earlier this summer, and that really provides, that Reimagining Downtown plan really provides a framework for leading our center city out of the pandemic. And if I could summarize it very succinctly, it's doubling down on a strategy of completing downtown Cleveland's transformation from a traditional 9-to-5 central business district into a really model 18-hour, 15-minute walkable neighborhood. In order to get there, though, we know that having a clean, safe, welcoming environment is the absolute foundation for all of the good things that have happened in our downtown and all the things that we want to see in terms of creating a really model, walkable neighborhood. And one of our key components of our safety strategy has been evolving our Clean and Safe Ambassador program, which I think many of you are familiar with. We've got ambassadors who have been on duty in downtown streets 7 a.m. to midnight for over 16 years now. But more recently, in response to the safety challenges that we've seen, we've upgraded our safety ambassadors to really be trained in conflict de-escalation, to be able to better interact with people who may be experiencing crisis in our streets, and involve our social service and unhoused outreach specialists or law enforcement as needed in response to situations. It's been a very, very well-received initiative. We've also expanded the hours of operation of our safety ambassadors. They're now on duty until 3:30 a.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And again, it's been very well received by downtown residents and businesses across the Center City neighborhood. We're seeking this additional support today because in expanding the hours of operation, in upgrading the safety ambassadors, providing better compensation to the safety ambassadors, growing their numbers, adding labor hours, we are now deficit spending on public safety in downtown. And this contribution today will help mitigate the deficit spending that we're doing. Doesn't erase it by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly helps. And again, I think it is a critical addition to helping us make sure that we've got that clean, safe, welcoming foundation. And I think we're doing it in a way with the neighborhood safety specialists that is very consistent with the direction that I think we all want to see community policing go in, and really relying on a crisis intervention model of public safety that we think can be a model for other parts of the city and ultimately other parts of the region. I urge your favorable consideration of the support for the organization and would be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, you or the committee may have.
Mr. Chairman, what does a neighborhood safety specialist person look like?
Well, they are branded in black and white polo shirts, a dark ball cap that says Downtown Cleveland Alliance for now. They'll be rebranded in the coming weeks and months to reflect the new branding of the organization. But they are on foot patrol across downtown and are really readily recognizable by their black and white polos and branding on the front and back of those polo shirts.
Thank you. Where does the funding come from for these specialists?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman, the base funding comes from the Special Improvement District property assessment that downtown property owners pay. Through that property assessment, we raise just a little over $5 million, and about 80% of that goes towards the Clean and Safe program, and an increasing percentage of it goes towards the neighborhood safety specialists.
Yes, through the chair, is there an active, if there's an active crime and the ambassadors witness it, how are they allowed to interact?
If an ambassador witnesses a crime that involves in the type of situation you described, Mr. Chairman, to the councilwoman, an ambassador would have to summon the help of law enforcement. They're not to intervene in an active crime scene. They are able to provide some basic first responder aid, and they have been called upon in certain situations to do that, but they don't have any law enforcement powers. They need to ask for a representative of law enforcement to come respond to that type of situation.
See a woman being attacked, they couldn't intervene at that moment as a citizen. I'm just, muggings, whatever the case may be. No, they need to respond and call 911 like at the restaurant.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chair, Vice Chair, I think in that situation, they would need to respond as any citizen would. They don't have any special authority, I think is what's important for me to communicate here today. They would certainly call 911 and intervene as appropriate and necessary as I think any of us might, but they don't have any special authority to do that.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. We hear a lot of excessive force with police and things like that. I just wanted to be clear what exactly our ambassadors could or could not do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And if I may add, Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chair, the safety specialists specifically they're trained in nonviolent conflict de-escalation. We tend to hire people who have worked in hospitality and security environments. So think of concert venues where they've had experience dealing with people who are amped up on emotions or otherwise, and have training and experience to de-escalate those situations nonviolently before they escalate into something more challenging that may require the intervention of law enforcement. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Hearing nothing further, if everyone's okay, we can move Resolution 2023-0231 to the full council for a full 3 readings.
Thank you. I'd like to have my name added.
Do I have a motion? So moved. In a second?
Second.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Council President Jones
Second.
is in the middle.
Second. I was just telling him, he can't second.
Got excited for the neighborhood safety specialist.
Simon and Ms. Conwell. All set? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much.
2023-0242.
Resolution number 2023-0242, authorizing an amendment to contract number CM402 with Trinity Services Group for jail food services for the Cuyahoga County Jail System.
Good afternoon, council members. Donna Cleo, Sheriff's Finance Manager. This Trinity amendment is a one-year amendment which will allow us time to draft and release and award and execute a new RFP and a new contract for jail food services. The current amendment does expire at the end of this month, and this amendment will begin on 10/1 if approved. We have several people here today to answer any questions you may have. We have Warden Everett with us. We have some of the Sheriff's Command staff with us. We have Greg Huth from the Law Department, Chris Costin, who can answer any questions you have on cost or numbers. And then also from Trinity, we have Matt Stimson, the VP of Operations, and Patty Beadle, District Manager. So with that, if you have any questions, just start firing them at us.
Thank you. And we've been briefed on the contract and the circumstances. Any questions? No questions? Yes, sir.
My question to Ms. Khalil is how confident are you that if we put out an RFP, that there's going to be a meaningful number of competitors so that we truly have a competitive bid and are in a position to look at multiple courses of action going forward?
Well, if you do remember, last time we did the RFP, we did get 3 bids on it, which was Aramark, Summit, and Trinity. And then, I don't know if you remember, some of you may have been in the meeting with President Brady at the time, and they wanted us to do a second RFP. So we did it again, and all 3 did bid again. So, I mean, how confident am I? Do I think the same 3? And in the meantime, there might be more vendors out there. I don't know. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I do know last time we did it twice and we did get 3 bids each time.
And Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Khalil, do you know of any other vendors in this business other than those 3?
I currently do not. Do you want? I do not. I currently do not. We do have other people here that may be able to answer that, but I don't know for sure.
Anything further? And because of the time, I would assume you want to move this as quick.
If we could have a
as possible.
suspension of rules, that would be great.
If everybody's comfortable moving forward with Resolution 2023-0242, that a full council under second reading suspension, I'll accept the motion in a second. Motion? Have a second? Further discussion?
One further question.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct that this changes the operation so that Trinity is gonna basically do the whole food service as opposed to the current operation where we did parts and they did parts, and there was sometimes confusion over who was responsible for what?
Correct. What we did before was Trinity would have some staff in there. We would have both some of our county cooks in there, and then we also had trustees in the kitchen. And with this new amendment, what it's going to be is it's going to be 100% Trinity staff. There will no longer be trustees. We started having a problem getting trustees in there for 2 reasons. Because of COVID, when that hit. That really hurt our trustee program. And then also because some of I guess they're having a difficult time finding nonviolent offenders. So with that being said, and then we have lost some of our cooks, which I'm being told they will be reallocated elsewhere within the jail. They're going to, it will be 100% staffed by Trinity over the next year. Now, with the new RFP, I don't know how the jail administration is going to want the operations to look at that point, but I know with this amendment, it will be staffed 100% by Trinity.
Anything further?
I just wanted to ask a little question. So I know the change, but will we still utilize for activity or merits people that are residing in the jail? Will they help them in any way, to continue on there? Or it'll just straight be Trinity?
I cannot answer that. You want me to get Warren Everett, ask Warren Everett? I don't know the answer to that question.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
My understanding is I'm 7 days in, so I'm getting brought up to speed here, but my understanding is all the inmate workers will be phased out within a 30, 60, 90-day period. So there will be no inmate workers working in the kitchen area.
Not being there. Okay. During mealtime. Thank you.
Yeah, I just one comment, just a point of clarification for the public, because I don't know that everybody in the public knows this, but there are certain requirements as far as nutritional values and things like that that are required by the state for inmates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All
It's
right, so
required by the OAC.
this isn't something like if we have a shortage of food or we got cold food, we can run out and get McDonald's. I've heard that put forth several times. It's so ignorant. I can't believe I hear that, but I do hear that. So you can't do it. You can't run out and get fast food for these inmates who some have restrictions for health or religion or other purposes. Correct?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can you also state your name for the record?
Sure. Jeremy Everett.
Set? All done. All in favor? Aye. Against? Well, we wish you and Trinity the best of luck.
Thank you for your time.
Finally, I had contacted the sheriff to be here. He's unfortunately out of town, I believe at a sheriff's seminar, and was unable to attend. I wanted him to bring in his administration, his new hires, people we're not familiar with yet, and have him introduce them and give us an overview of where he's been at in the short period in which he's been sheriff. Having said that, I know many of those individuals that the sheriff was going to bring here to introduce are here. So Donna, do you want to just bring the folks up that the sheriff wanted to introduce us to? And what I'm going to do is, and I apologize, I would prefer that the sheriff be here. He's going to give us his 90-day report in 1 month in the committee. At that time, this same group will be in front of us. But gentlemen, if you could introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do now, and potentially what our goals are with the county. And I'm most interested in the warden in the jail.
I'm Aaron Reese, retired.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can you step to
Aaron Reese, I'm the new chief deputy. I retired from the Cleveland Division of Police. 27-year police veteran. I retired last week, started last week. My last assignment was the officer in charge of the Cleveland Police Homicide Unit and the officer in charge of the Force Investigation Team. Very much looking forward to working with the men and women of the Sheriff's Department under the Sheriff's leadership and moving forward and fulfilling our duties.
Thank you.
Jim Rapicki, Special Assistant to the Sheriff. My previous work experience was chief at University Circle for about 8 years, Federal Courthouse Security for 3.5, chief at Euclid Police Department. I served there 31 years. And as far as my job assignments now, unfortunately, we're only in our 7th day, but I've worked on some policies, looked over some budget items, and looking forward to working with county council on any issues they might have with the sheriff's department.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I didn't hear the name. Could you repeat it again,
Rapicki.
please?
I'm sorry, Jim Rapicki. Would you like to have a spelling?
Sure.
Okay, Repicky.
Okay, I got it right for a change.
Okay.
And Warden.
Again, my name is Jeremy Everett. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I spent 20 years at the Tuscarawas County Sheriff's Office, 6 years being their jail administrator. I've recently spent 6 years working for the Department of Youth Services for the state of Ohio. Just looking forward to being part of the team, improving the operations of the jail, making sure that the internal quality assurances are there, and moving the sheriff's office forward.
Like I said, in about a month, we'll have the sheriff bring you guys back. You have a little bit more time underneath your belt. Maybe you can put together what you see and what you wish to do as we move forward. The council is very, very involved in trying to fix what's broken, and that's been going on for a number of years, as I'm sure you're well aware. So we wish you luck, and we expect to see you back here in a month.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask what Jim Rapicki does again? I kind of got policy, but what's your specific job duty for the jail now?
Well,
Your title?
well, it's special assistant to the sheriff.
Okay.
So basically, any assignments that he would like to research more for his presentation to council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is that a new position, or there's always been a position for assistant sheriff?
There has been positions, but they haven't filled them due to manpower shortfall.
I see. And your experience, you said, was you worked at UCI? Did I hear that?
Yes, I was police chief of the University Circle Police Department and also
when was
Euclid Police
that?
Department.
When?
Last 8 years.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you. In Euclid. Okay.
Anything else? Well, thank you for being here. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but at least you got a little feel for what we deal with daily. So best of luck, gentlemen. See you in a month. And if you need anything, don't hesitate. Miscellaneous? Hearing none? Thank you.